down to earth. Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
So this idea of simply being, it's an interesting topic because it's playful, it can be very boring, and yet it is what life calls us to do, calls us to be. And appreciate your music very much. That playful joy, the whiskey, I thought, I could take one right now. And then the beautiful serenade to the heart is what it felt like to me. And just to dance with that and to feel those notes. It's as if I love this music without words, and yet our own mind fills that space with words. So thank you so much. And this week I always like practice my week in preparing for a talk. I kind of look at my world. And one of the things that I was called upon to do this week was to serve at the Red Luncheon for the hospital. And that's not my thing, to go to those big luncheons and wear red. I didn't have anything red, so I had to go buy something red. And as I'm sitting at my little blood pressure station, feeling really like there's all this festivity going on and the room is decorated with red roses, it really was done stunningly well. But I thought, oh, here I'm showing up in this experience feeling shy and awkward. And one of the other nurses just grabbed the blood pressure cuff and she went around to people and was asking them if they wanted their blood pressure taken. And I was observing. I was watching them go, no. And then I thought, why I'm not doing that. I'm staying over here if you want it. I'm over here, come to me. And then I got one of those. This is the first time in my life. I had my red sweater and my scarf on, and this lady comes by and she goes, oh, you guys look so cute with your little red scarves. And I went, I've just crossed over. I'm in that age group where we become cute with our red scarves. And I thought, how old do you think I am? And I thought, okay, let's not get defensive here. Stay focused on blood pressures. But it's, huh? Yeah. So it's just interesting, this familiarity. I don't know how some of you, sometimes when I go to a social event, you're there, like, hey, I'm here and it's happening, and I'm here. And other times there's this little bit of self-consciousness that we can bring with us. But what is that all about? So I decided, if I'm going to practice this art of simply being, I need to enjoy this a little bit. So I started taking in all the colors and really watching people. So amusing to not have anybody come to your station and just to listen. I bought my ticket in January. Why am I over there in the dark? And who's in charge of this? And I thought, oh, I'm so not. I'm so not. I'm just doing blood pressures. I'm one of the elders. And so it was but to really be there, and to enjoy the experience for what it is. And so I wanted to share with you some of the ideas. Now, we're continuing the talks on awakening joy, and this was written by James Perez and Shoshana Alexander. We've been using the themes for our talks these last 2 months. And this idea is being present to the soft breezes that open our senses to receive the images around us. And so that's what it's calling for you to do, is to be present to your senses, to open the doorway to your being. Open the doorway. The music again opened the doorway to our being. We could have been many places through the announcements wondering, what am I going to sign up for? And then the music brings us home to the heart and the deep prayers and the readings. So this is all being deeper than any of our conflicting thoughts that could be happening. It becomes the source of our wisdom. And we begin to meet people and meet ourselves, right? Right where we are, and accept that. Byron Katie is one of my favorite teachers through the last few years, and she wrote a book with her husband, Stephen Mitchell, 1,000 Names for Joy, and she bases this particular book on the Tao Te Ching, and she relates a particular passage that I wanted to share with you. She said, the quote itself is, "Therefore the master remains serene." You are the master, remember this. "Therefore the master remains serene in the midst of sorrows. Evil cannot enter the heart, because one has given up helping, and one is people's greatest help." Because she has given up helping. She returns to that idea. When we give up trying to be anything, we just show up to help and to be the presence that is called for. And she goes on to say, this was so beautiful, and I could not paraphrase it any other way. "The awakened mind is like water. It flows where it flows. It envelops all things in its path. It doesn't try to change anything, yet in its steadiness, all things change. It goes in and out, around and over, above and below, and without meaning to, it penetrates wherever it can. It delights in its own movement and in everything that allows or doesn't allow it, and eventually, everything allows it." So she goes on to share about a particular experience, and try to place yourself in the middle of this story, because we do this to other people sometimes, we do it to ourselves, and so the roles can change back and forth for you. She relates this story. "An old friend perceives me as unkind, and he has all the proof. And though I'm not the person he knew 25 or 30 years ago now," right there, don't you wonder what people still hold from you that gosh, you were in high school and you go to these reunions and they say, "Oh, there you are," or "There you are," and it's like all these years and you've grown, you've changed, you evolved, but people kind of hold you. They hold you at a certain space. So she said, "He knew me 25 or 30 years ago, and he must continue to project his experience of the old me onto the woman in front of him now. For the last 20 years, he said, continued to meet the woman of his thoughts." Interesting there, isn't it? Meeting the woman of the thoughts. Yet the woman of today is like the water that had been flowing. But I don't move back and I don't avoid. See, here's the spiritual duty. This is the act of simply being. Let the people receive you and perceive you. It's okay to be seen that way. But what do we first do? I want to defend myself here and let them know how evolved I am. No, you let even that go. I don't try to defend or qualify. I listen to him as a student while he tells his story of me. I continue to flow in and out, over and under, around, listening and looking into his eyes and simply loving him. And today, for the first time, I noticed that when he talked about me, he seemed more lighthearted and trusting. And as we walked in the park, he took my hand. We sat under a tree and he told me what was going on in his inner life, and it was such an intimate conversation. He seemed to have caught up with me, and as if he were seeing and responding to something other than his old projection. It was as if I were watching myself reborn in him, and he was sitting with someone we both knew, a friend. I got to hear about his sorrow and his happiness rather than about the woman who didn't exist, the one who had caused his problem in the first place. There was a lot to laugh about this time, and I sat with the two of us who were like water now, flowing together, joined as one. It wasn't the water that had changed, it was the rock. And in that change, the water continues to flow. Isn't that just so beautiful? So I invite you into that practice. Oh my gosh, what grudges have you been holding in your heart to someone that you need to remove that rock? We have this lifetime to lift the rocks and let the water flow, water the spirit, love the flow. This is the grace, this is the truth. And last weekend we had the wonderful retreat with Dr. James Golden and Leslie Golden, and they brought us the spiritual practices that invite us to always remember to just be present with one another, to slow down. So I invite you, as you leave here today, take that practice of slowing down. Change your pace. We're such in a hurry. And just to take your pace to a place where you can breathe, you can walk, you can see one another as you pass each other. This is a place that we invited ourselves into, this place of stillness last week and silence and gratitude for our meals. We slowed down long enough to actually see what we're eating. That was new for me. I thought, I'm done? Well, did I have a full plate? Yes, I did. And so, it's this opportunity to slow down and to pay attention. And I loved Tara. She had prepared all this food, but we were to eat so mindfully that we had so much food left over. Because normally, if we're not in that space, we're hungry. And we just devour the food right before our very eyes. So that beautiful story of Byron Katie, reminded me of many of the stories that the author had shared about in his writing about this being in joy. And he spoke of one particular woman named Allison. And Allison had come to eventually be in one of his meditation classes. And she had had a life's journey of being a bad girl. And she had opportunities in her earlier years to become in a relationship with a man named David. And they really connected at this time. He was an acupuncturist, and he was working with her, but then when they found that they were falling in love with one another, he wouldn't serve her as a client anymore, and they had this relationship. But it overwhelmed her. It was too good for her. She said in her own words, she wasn't done being bad. And so she broke it off. When she broke it off, it broke his heart. And he used that as his touchstone for the rest of his life. You know what? He became a guru of a Kriya Yoga lineage, a certain practice where he traveled around the world. He became the storytelling Swami in his particular order. And he had a guitar and a story to tell. And he didn't tell a story of woe is me. It wasn't a cowboy kind of story. Not that you guys do that. And it wasn't anything like that. This is the story he says. He would share that the woman in Berkeley had pushed him into the arms of the divine by breaking his heart at the perfect time. What a way to write the script of that story. To be one that your heart was broken and you have been set at the footsteps of your divine, and you follow that path. So Allison, though, floundered for the next 17 years. She led a hard and confusing life that was filled with abusing her body and her mind and her emotions. She went in and out of all sorts of unhealthy relationships. None of us have done anything like that, but we can try to relate. But the voice of wisdom was hard to hear when her mind was filled with distractions and these conflicting desires and self-doubts. That is the nature of the mind, to cause these conflicting ideas to occur, to just emerge through you. And I've sat with people and done counseling, and it's just an interesting place to be. This last summer we had a trip, and one of the Linda Mitchell and Kurt had gone and visited this church where the message was "Stop it," and it was all on Bob Newhart's little spiel. So look that up. Bob Newhart on your YouTubes. Look for the episode where he's doing counseling. Is Linda here? Stop it. Yeah, there she is. And it became the topic. So you're spilling out your story. Well, stop it. That was and I felt like saying that sometimes to people when I'm counseling them. Stop it. Because it's the truth. Those two words are very profound. Stop it. Stop thinking like that. And stop hurting yourself. Stop it. And it becomes such a wise teaching. So in her journey, she recognized that she started to believe some of the stories, the particular stories that she was telling about herself. But she was the only one programming them. You're the only one programming those stories in yourself. A deeper wisdom is always available. Where is that wisdom, we ask? It's in the stillness. It's in the silence of your own soul. But how do you get there? Well, first you stop it, and then you sit very quietly in the self, you allow periods of absolute silence to welcome your heart and soul in. And there, the still small voice of the one love that never leaves you beckons you to a deeper listening, and you find your way. So she began to drop more into the present moment, and she allowed the noise of the past to relax its grip, it's described. Relax its grip on you. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Oh, to be free of that burden. To tune into the clarity that arises from being still within. That still small voice. So we let go of our agendas and we start to be at ease with the moment. And we recognize when we can be in that place, do you know what happens? Your figuring mind, it'll start to chatter at you. You could do this, you could do that, you could wear this, you could wear that, you could look like this, you could really be irritated that that person thought you were really old. You could think, you could do all of those, or you could just say, I think I'll just be here and relax my body and relax my mind, drop into that place of calm and get grounded. And then the mind starts to recognize the right answers. And then people start to come up. People did start to. When I was in that welcoming space, they came to me. So this voice of wisdom, this is the voice of your being. This is what we come to spiritual practices for. This is why we come to a spiritual center, to really know that voice in this lifetime. It is one of kindness. You'll know it. It's one of kindness. It's not one that's beating you up. It has clarity, compassion, and understanding. You will feel it and know it because a relaxation will come through your body. You will soften your heart. You will drop the burden on your shoulders. There's a sense of aligning yourself, mind and body and spirit. That's what yoga is. I have taught yoga since I was 18. Oh, for a few years. No. I'm 61. That's a long time to be practicing the idea of yoga. It breathes me. I live for the idea of that opportunity to feel that knowing of spirit moving through each and every one as I watch them relax and sit into the presence of the self. That's what yoga is all about. And one of the Yoga Sutras speaks very powerfully to what I am pointing to. And it's the idea of santosha, that deep, abiding contentment with life. When you dwell in the santosha of all things, it's such a beautiful word. Oh, I'm so deeply content. It's how we felt when we left our spiritual practices after the retreat last week. We were filled with santosha. We had spent hours taking each other in, mindfully bowing to one another, mindfully eating our food, slowing down our pace, chanting the name of the divine, and loving one another at a very sincere and deep level, and serving one another, adding that piece of service to one another. So we left accepting what is in a place of absolute calm, feeling solid and standing in a place of power and truth. You can know this. You can identify this in your own self because your whole body will soften to the truth. So what's the end of the story with Allison and David? Oh, do tell, because that's what I came for. And she says, it was challenging for Allison to break the habits that were driving her, and the voice of wisdom inside her was still distant. But David had helped awaken something in her those many years before by seeing what was true and real, and she was watering the seeds by taking care of her body now and meditating and paying attention to what she really wanted. I started reading a lot and spending time by myself. I wanted inner peace, but I never thought it was possible. I just hadn't known how to get there. But she was finding her way to true happiness. She was recognizing the idea of being absolutely present in her being. But then she slipped. Longing for love and connection, she struck up a friendship with the married man. Although she knew it would cause pain to everyone involved, that attraction was very strong, and the confusion of the voices inside of her drowned out the wisdom, and she was just starting to get to know. Desperate, she talked to friend after friend. When I contemplated having an affair, I told at least 4 people what I was planning to do. Not one of them said, "Don't do it." Stop it. So Allison sought out an old boyfriend who surprisingly provided exactly what she needed. He said, "Don't do it. It's not you. You're not that person anymore." How much love is that? You're not that person anymore. There was this huge thank you that rose inside of me and a tremendous sigh of relief. We know the ring of truth when we hear it. Allison heard another clear message as well. Contact David. This time when she searched for him on the internet, she found him, the storytelling monk. I was looking for my anchor of truth to keep me on the path I had worked so damn hard to stay on. She was mustering up her courage, and she went to the Swami through email. Within minutes, he replied. He wrote me that he was just telling his students the week before that I was one of his first gurus, because when his life went into crisis after they parted, he found his true self. He said he'd been sending me blessings and prayers for the last 20 years. Oh, love that. Want to know more? So over the next 2 months, they stayed in daily touch by email. Now remember, he took his vows of celibacy, and he was in an order that didn't allow relationships. But it soon became obvious to both of them that their old love story was not finished. So David invited Allison to join him in India for a meditation program and a pilgrimage to various holy places he had organized for a group of his students. This time, when Allison met David, she was able to hear what she had known to be true all along. He was the perfect partner for her. With the blessings of his fellow Swami in the order, David had made the decision to forego being a monk, and he married Allison, and they continued doing their spiritual work as laypersons. As Allison took back her life and the lessons she learned, one of the most important among them is knowing how to listen carefully to her deepest self and act on that. Now she knows the signs and points the way. She says, "When I stay grounded in my truth, my heart feels light and open and expansive. When I'm living outside the truth, out of alignment with my integrity, I feel a weight on my chest and in my heart. This pressure disconnects me from others, and it doesn't leave until I make peace with whatever the problem is." So why do I tell you that story? Please, leave here today, make peace with whatever it is, so that you can be that free, so that you can find that state of being in the level of stillness. It doesn't matter what you choose. So oftentimes we get at that gateway and we think, God, I could do this or that. That's the fear that's kind of holding you back. In those moments, you take a big breath and you take a step forward and know that you're making a choice. If it's the wrong choice, you will know it, you will feel it, and love and grace and kindness will carry you into the direction that you're meant to be. When life is hard, when life feels hard to you, allow the deeper ideas of compassion and understanding from those around you. Find the true friends that will speak that truth to you, that will enable you to stand in the anchor of your true self. I have just a few minutes left to share with you this idea from the presence process. And Reverend Pam, I believe, is going to do this process again when she's done traveling. And so watch for the presence process to be offered here again at the center. It is life-changing. Many of you went through the program and are going through the program again and again to find your way, because it settles you into a place of knowing. But what he speaks to, and this is Michael Brown in the presence process, he speaks to the idea of the holy flower of the rose. And I found that I wanted to share this with you. The most powerful presence process is that life is a rose, and that a rose has thorns. A rose has thorns. God deliberately created roses to be the symbol and the scent of saints and of love itself. God also deliberately adorned these beautiful flowers with sharp thorns. This is to remind us about balance. This is to stimulate integration. Interesting, isn't it? When you look upon a rose, this is to awaken us to gentleness and respect. We have all felt pain. We have already each experienced so much physical, mental, emotional discomfort in this life that our tendency is consciously and unconsciously to seek a state in which we are eternally joyful. Such a state of being is possible, but it does not come from choosing a path that has a destination or a path that practices exclusivity. If God is infinite, then the journey to God realization must be an eternal one. If God created everything, then everything must be embraced to integrate what God is. So the idea of the thorn, the more conscious we become, the clearer it will be that just because roses have thorns does not mean that we are meant to bleed, although at times we may. The thorns are there to remind us to move about in this world with present moment awareness. I love that. Not to be in a hurry. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself as the texture of the rose petal. In this way, we will perceive how perfectly the thorns of life adorn our pathway to facilitate us back to full awareness. How beautiful is that? When next time you pick up a rose, you will notice how mindful you must be to touch the stem and to appreciate the softness of every petal. So I leave you with those words. I leave you with the idea of what we received in that retreat. It wasn't for us alone to hoard that truth. It's for us to share that truth and to allow this sanctuary to continue to be one that is filled with the sacred, that is filled with opportunities of love, of forgiveness, of steadfastness to walk our talk and to live our truth. So as we awaken on this journey, we're all together, we're all one in that space. So join with me in that place of silence. Soften to that place of stillness, to that place of santosha. As we breathe, we awaken. We feel the petals of our life, soft, blooming, reminding us of our beauty and the joy. And the thorns are there to remind us to be true to ourselves. So in this moment of centeredness together, we drop into God's love and feel that divine partnership. We are one with this love, with this truth. Let it be our journey from this day forward to relax into the knowing, the simple joy of being. Thank you, God, for this place where I can be my truest self, and all the friends that I meet along the way see me as I am this day, my evolving self. And in the quiet moments where I sit in dialogue with my own heart, with the one truth, I recognize I am this love. And this love is me in every way expressed. So we leave this moment, this divine, quiet, still moment. We leave it blessed in love. and so it is.